After a year together, my boyfriend declared, "I'm quitting my job. You'll take care of me now." When I refused, he smirked, "Then I'll just marry someone who knows how to treat a man." I laughed, pulled out my phone, and said, "Perfect timing, check your bank account." I, 29 female, work a stable job, manage my finances well, and have always believed in being independent. My ex, Daniel, 31 male, was someone I thought shared those values until he didn't. We were together for just over a year. In the beginning, everything seemed great. He had a decent job in IT, he was responsible, or so I thought, and he never made me feel like I had to carry him. We split expenses fairly, went on trips, and even talked about moving in together permanently. Then, out of nowhere, he dropped a bombshell on me. One evening, after dinner, he leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and said, "I'm quitting my job. You'll take care of me now." At first, I laughed because I thought he was joking, but his face stayed serious. I asked him, "What do you mean?" He shrugged like it was no big deal. "I don't like working. It's stressful. You make enough, and I figured, why put myself through that when I have you?" I felt my stomach turn. I asked him what exactly he planned to do while I worked. His response? "I'll focus on my hobbies. Maybe start streaming. Play some games. You wouldn't want me to be miserable, right?" I blinked. "You want to quit your job to play video games and expect me to pay for everything?" He sighed like I was the one being difficult. That's what people do when they love someone. They take care of them. I was so stunned that I couldn't even speak for a second. This man had never once hinted that he wanted to quit. He was always talking about promotions, about moving up in his company. And now, just like that, he wanted to walk away from it all because he thought I would fund his lifestyle. I was still processing when he leaned forward, smirking like he had it all figured out. "Well," he said, "if you won't do it, I'll just find someone who knows how to treat a man." That's when I laughed. Hard, because I had been waiting for this moment. I pulled out my phone, opened my banking app, and turned the screen toward him. "Perfect timing, check your bank account." He frowned, clearly confused, but did as I said. I watched as his smirk faded, his eyes widening as he stared at the screen. His breathing got faster. His hands started shaking. "Where's my money?" "Oh!" Let me explain exactly what he saw. The setup Daniel made one fatal mistake. He underestimated me. I had started noticing small red flags months before this moment. He became more critical of my work, making offhand comments about how I focused too much on money. He made snide remarks about lazy rich people and how he wished he had it easy. He started forgetting to pay his half of bills, and I had to remind him multiple times. He developed this sudden obsession with the idea of not working. The final straw? One night, I overheard a phone conversation he had with a friend. "She makes enough for both of us, man. I just gotta wait a little longer and then, boom, I'm set for life." That's when I knew. He was planning to mooch off me permanently. So, I made my own plan. For weeks, I prepared quietly. I opened a new, private bank account and moved the majority of my savings there. I stopped using our shared card for anything other than minor purchases. I withdrew my portion of the rent and bills early, so I wasn't stuck covering his expenses. I slowly moved my valuables out of our shared space to a friend's apartment, just in case. But the biggest thing? Daniel had been using my emergency savings as his personal piggy bank. I let him. Every time he borrowed money, I kept track. He thought I wasn't paying attention, but I had records of every single transfer. And tonight, when he decided to finally announce his plan to quit, that was the moment I had been waiting for. So when I told him to check his bank account, what he saw was this: his balance? $0. The money he borrowed from my savings? Gone. His credit card, which I had been paying off? Closed. Rent and bills for the upcoming month? Already paid by me alone. His entire plan crumbled in seconds. His voice shook as he stared at his screen. "What did you do?" I smiled. "Oh, you mean your money? The money you took from my savings? That wasn't yours. I just took it back." His jaw clenched. "You can't just—" I interrupted. "And I did. Also, your name was never on that account. You were just using my login. That's called theft." I watched his confidence crumble. He scrambled for excuses, saying he was just borrowing it and that he would have paid me back. I let out a fake gasp. "Oh, so you do believe in paying your fair share? Great. Let's talk about the rent you haven't paid for the last 2 months. His face turned red. "What?" I pulled up another screen. "See, I was covering both our halves for a while because I wanted to be nice. But now that we're done, your portion is due. Today." He swallowed hard. "Where am I supposed to get that money?" I shrugged. "Not my problem. Maybe you should find someone who knows how to treat a man." His face twisted in anger. "You're really doing this?" "Yes. You can't just kick me out." "I can. And I will. I stood up, my heart pounding, but I refused to let it show. Pack your things. You have 48 hours. He started pacing, running his hands through his hair. This isn't fair. You can't just abandon me. I scoffed. You were never my responsibility. He tried to argue. He called mutual friends, playing the victim. He tried guilt-tripping me about everything we had been through. He even showed up with flowers and a fake apology. But I was done. I had the locks changed, blocked his number, and let our friends know exactly what had happened. He begged me to take him back. I ignored him. I don't know where he is now. But I know one thing, he didn't find anyone to take care of him, because no one falls for a freeloader twice. The first 24 hours after I told Daniel to leave were uneventful. Too uneventful. I expected yelling, maybe some dramatic begging, even an attempt at gaslighting. But instead, silence. I worked my usual hours the next day, kept my phone on silent, and ignored the texts piling up from our mutual friends. Some were supportive, saying, "Good for you." Others? Not so much. Daniel's in shock. Just talk to him. Are you really throwing him out over money? He's saying you drained his account and ruined his life. That one made me laugh. Ruined his life? He tried to trap me into supporting him, and he was the victim? Classic. By the time I got home that evening, I was ready for anything. But when I walked in, Daniel was still there, sitting on my couch, drinking my expensive coffee, acting like nothing had changed. I stopped in my tracks. What are you doing here? He didn't even look up from his phone. Waiting for you to calm down. I nearly laughed in his face. Excuse me? Daniel sighed dramatically, putting his phone down like this whole thing was exhausting for him. Look, I get it. You got upset. But let's be real. You don't actually want me to leave. I dropped my bag. Yes, I do. He leaned back, stretching his arms like he owned the place. Nah, you just needed to get your anger out. You'll realize I was right soon enough. I clenched my jaw. You have 24 hours left. Daniel rolled his eyes. Or what? You'll call the cops. He smirked. You wouldn't do that to me. I stared at him. I didn't say a word. I just pulled out my phone and dialed. Daniel's smirk vanished. As I expected, the police told me something frustrating. Because Daniel had been living with me for over 6 months, he had tenant rights. That meant I couldn't just throw him out. I needed to formally evict him, which could take months. When I told Daniel this, he had the audacity to grin. See, he said, you can't get rid of me. I should have been furious. But instead, I smiled, because he had just made his biggest mistake. He thought this was over. It wasn't. Not even close. I went full chess mode. The next morning, I started taking steps that Daniel never saw coming. First, I cut him off completely. No Wi-Fi. Disconnected. No more utilities on my dime. I called the electric company and had his name put on the bill. He had 1 week to set up payment or get the power shut off. No food. I cleared the fridge of anything I had bought. Left behind only what was his. Spoiler, that meant almost nothing. Then, I got strategic. I filed a formal eviction notice. I told our landlord Daniel would be responsible for half the rent. And since I had already paid mine, guess who was on the hook? I warned our mutual friends that Daniel was trying to freeload. Some of them had already started dodging his calls. But my favorite move? The job application stunt. See, Daniel wasn't just lazy. He was proud of being lazy. He kept talking about how he deserved an easy life. How people who worked hard were suckers. So I did something petty. I started sending out job applications for him. Entry-level positions. Retail. Fast food. I made sure to use his email. His phone number. And then, the best part? I faked a cover letter where he sounded over the moon about wanting to work. Within days, he was getting non-stop calls. At first, he ignored them. Then, he got mad. Why are all these places calling me? He snapped one night. I shrugged. Maybe the universe is telling you to get a job. He glared. I don't want some stupid minimum wage job. Well, you need some kind of job, I said, smiling. After all, you have rent to pay now. Daniel's face turned red. I'm not paying rent. I nodded. Right. Because you're leaving soon. His jaw clenched. I already told you, I have tenant rights. I leaned in. Oh, I know. And guess what? Until you're gone, you legally owe half the rent. Silence. I watched the realization hit him. He thought he was being smart by dragging this out. But he had just trapped himself. Over the next 2 weeks, I watched Daniel unravel. Without Wi-Fi, he was bored. Without food, he was hungry. Without anyone willing to support him, he was desperate. I stopped talking to him completely. I ignored him in our own home. And then, the real cherry on top, one of the job applications I sent? They actually scheduled him for an interview. Daniel showed up to it furious, thinking he was going to tell them off. But guess what? They offered him a job on the spot. And suddenly, he wasn't so smug anymore. Because he realized he had no choice but to take it. It's been a month. Daniel still hasn't found a way to escape the situation. He's now working in a job he would have mocked a few months ago. And me? I'm just watching. Because his final downfall is coming soon. And I cannot wait. Daniel thought he had won. At least, that's what he told himself. Yes, he had to get a job, but in his mind, it was temporary. Just a little bump in the road before he found some other way to weasel his way into an easier life. Except, life had other plans. Because just when he thought things couldn't get worse, they did. Daniel still refused to leave. The eviction process was moving forward, but it was slow. In the meantime, he had one responsibility: pay his half of the rent. And, of course, he didn't. One afternoon, my landlord called me. Hey, I just wanted to confirm something. Daniel said you two agreed he wouldn't be paying this month. I almost laughed. No, I said, keeping my voice calm. In fact, he was supposed to pay his half. The landlord sighed. That's what I thought. Well, here's the thing. If he doesn't pay, we're filing an official notice against both of you. I nearly dropped my phone. Wait, why me? Because you're both on the lease, he said. Unless you file a formal request to remove him, you're both responsible. I felt my stomach drop. This was worse than I thought. Daniel wasn't just freeloading, he was actively trying to ruin my financial record. I took a deep breath. I'll take care of it. And that's when I realized something crucial. Daniel didn't just need to leave. He needed to be kicked out fast. That night, I came home late. As I unlocked the door, I felt uneasy. The air inside felt off. And then I saw it. The living room was a disaster. Couch cushions thrown around. Papers scattered everywhere. My bookshelf knocked over. At first, my heart pounded. Did someone break in? But then, I saw something that made my blood boil. Daniel's gaming setup? Completely untouched. My laptop? Gone. My jewelry? Gone. I stormed into Daniel's room. He was lying in bed, scrolling through his phone. Not a single care in the world. What the hell happened? I demanded. He barely glanced at me. Dunno. Looks like someone broke in. I clenched my fists. And you didn't hear anything? He shrugged. I had my headphones on. Liar. I knew exactly what had happened. Daniel staged this. He stole my things. And he was sitting there, waiting to see if I would panic. I took a slow, deep breath. I'm calling the cops. That got his attention. Wait, what? No, don't do that. They won't do anything. I smiled. We'll see. 15 minutes later, 2 officers knocked on the door. Daniel started pacing as I explained what happened. I pointed at my missing belongings, the very specific items that were gone, and how Daniel, who was home the whole time, claimed he heard nothing. One officer turned to Daniel. You said you were wearing headphones? Daniel nodded. The officer frowned. But you didn't have any music playing when we arrived. Daniel's face twitched. I turned it off. The officer raised an eyebrow. Right before we got here? Daniel swallowed hard. Yeah. I could see the wheels turning in the officer's head. Mind if we check your room? The officer asked. Daniel stiffened. What? No. I mean, you don't have a warrant. The officer tilted his head. That's true. But if you didn't steal anything, you wouldn't mind us looking, right? Daniel glared at me. I smiled sweetly. For a moment, I thought he was going to refuse. But then, he made a huge mistake. He said, fine. The officers walked into his room. It only took 2 minutes before one of them called out, Ma'am, can you come here? I walked in, and there it was. My laptop, stuffed under his bed. My jewelry box, in his nightstand. I slowly turned to Daniel. Well. He opened his mouth. I was keeping them safe. In case the burglar came back. The officer sighed. Sir, you're under arrest for theft. Daniel's face turned white. Wait, what? One officer pulled out handcuffs. The other turned to me. Do you want to press charges? I looked at Daniel. He was fuming. His mouth opened and closed like a fish, trying to find an excuse, but for the first time, he had nothing. I tilted my head. Should I? Daniel's eyes widened. This was it. Checkmate. Daniel is in deep trouble now. But his downfall? It's not over yet. Because I have one final move left. And I cannot wait to play it. Daniel was arrested. For theft. For stealing from me. But if you thought that was the end of the story, oh, you'd be wrong. Because Daniel was not done making my life miserable. After the cops took him away, I sat on the couch, staring at the mess he'd made. It hit me all at once. This was someone I once loved. Someone I had trusted. And yet, he had been planning to use me all along. I took a deep breath. Then another. I told myself this was over. until my phone rang. It was Daniel's mother. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity won. The second I answered, she exploded. What did you do to my son? I blinked. Excuse me? She went on a full rant about how I was ruining his life, and how he always struggled with work, and if you really loved him, you would have supported him. I let her finish. Then, in the calmest voice I could manage, I said, he stole from me. Silence. Then, a bitter laugh. Oh, please. He wouldn't do that. I sighed. The police disagreed. She scoffed. You're exaggerating. If you cared, you'd drop the charges. That's when I realized something. Daniel didn't become this way overnight. His mother had enabled him. She had probably coddled him his whole life. Made excuses. Convinced him that he deserved to be taken care of. And now, he had found a new woman to take over where she left off. Well, not anymore. I took a slow breath. No, what? I'm not dropping the charges, I said. And you should stop calling me. Then I hung up. And blocked her. For the next few days, I expected silence. I was wrong. Instead, Daniel got out on bail. And he came straight back to my apartment. I had just come home when I heard pounding on my door. I checked the peephole. Daniel. Disheveled. Furious. I didn't open the door. Instead, I crossed my arms and spoke through the wood. What do you want? He scoffed. You know what I want. Let me in. No, his voice turned sharp. You ruined my life. I rolled my eyes. No, Daniel. You did that to yourself. I thought that would be the end of it. That he'd leave. But then, you think you're so smart, he hissed. You think you've won. But you haven't. Something about his tone made my stomach drop. Then he said something that sent a chill down my spine. You're going to regret this. I clenched my fists. Is that a threat? Silence. Then, a dark chuckle. See you around. And just like that, he was gone. I called the police immediately. Since he was already out on bail, I filed a restraining order. By the time his court date rolled around, he was forced to move out. He tried to fight the eviction. But the moment the judge heard he had been arrested for theft, it was over. And me? I finally felt free. A few weeks later, I got an email from an old mutual friend. They said, you're not gonna believe this, but Daniel tried to move in with someone new. And guess what? She kicked him out too. I laughed so hard I almost cried. Daniel hadn't changed. He just found someone else to try and leech off of. But this time, it didn't work. And me? I moved to a new apartment. Changed my locks. Got a promotion at work. And most importantly, I learned. I learned that love is not a free pass to be taken advantage of. I learned that some people will drain you dry and then call you cruel when you stop letting them. And I learned that the best revenge is living well. And trust me, I am.